John Burke, chef de jour. I know it all, and I'm going to teach you, or at least show you what I know some of. Depending on where you're located, you may be limited to the kind of Parmesan cheese you can get. You may actually be reduced to buying a paper green can of Parmesan cheese, but it'll work in this recipe. However, I'm in New York City. I can get the best cheese in the world, so I got Parmigiano Reggiano cheese. It's good stuff. This is a little older, drier piece. This is a nice, fresh, soft piece. Sometimes the old dry grates a little better. This stuff is already years old when you get it. So you want to chop it up into some moderate-sized chunks so the machine doesn't have to do all the work, carefully, because sometimes it'll surprise you by being very, very hard to cut with a knife. But I just want to get it into pieces that the machine will like. We're probably looking for, depending on how many squash burgers you're going to make, you're probably looking for about a half a cup, quarter cup to a full cup. If you're doing, say, 10 to 12 squash burgers, from a quarter to a half a cup is enough. You can use a lot more if you want. The more cheese, the merrier. It's no big deal. But for calorie-wise and health-wise cheese, I'm going to try to divide this up, this much cheese, into about 12 or 15 burgers worth. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to use the famous food processor. And I'm going to use this blade. This is the blade that will cut the cheese the most effectively. It's very sharp. Don't drop it. Don't fool around with it. That's what I'm going to use. So in goes the cheese. Try to get it all. And of course, you all have to know how to use your food processor. If you don't, check. There's a lesson on how to use a food processor. It's not the one I'm giving, but someone else will. There's pulse. And there's on. On is good for a little while. Put this thing in there to keep the stuff from bouncing out. Generally, with Parmesan cheese, when it stops making noise and stops clunking around, it's pretty much done. If you do it too long, it'll get powdery, and we don't want powdery, so I'd say about 35, 40 seconds, minute at the most in general. If you're using very dry Parmesan, it may take a little longer. But you hear how quiet it is now? Just by looking at it, I can tell it's pretty much done. We'll give it a pulse or two just to make sure we didn't miss any. And we've got well more than I thought. But you don't always know when you're measuring. That's one of the beauties of cooking, is sometimes you get surprises. We now have close to a cup of Parmesan cheese here. And what you don't use in the recipe with the squash burgers, you can use, put in a little bag, a little Ziploc bag, or a sealed container. Keep it in the refrigerator. You use it for pasta. Very good cheese. Wrap this up tightly, or keep it in a Ziploc bag in the refrigerator. It'll last for a good long time. A hand grater. People don't use these much, but this is a very, very handy tool to have in the kitchen. We're also going to use a Cuisinart, but that's later. First, we got to wash our squash. Let me give them a little rinse here. Give them a little wipe so they're not slippery. Okay, now I went to the farmer's market yesterday. Sunday is our farmer's market in this area, and I got these beautiful yellow squashes and these beautiful zucchini squashes. You can work this recipe with either one of these squashes, but the combination makes for a color that's quite astounding. I love them. Support your farmer's markets. You can get this in the supermarket. It's going to be older. Take off the little tip. You don't want that in your squash burger, and leave this on for a handle if you're going to use the hand grater. And we are going to use the hand grater. This one has a little pocket that you can, the stuff will go in. I guess if you're using garlic or something, you can use that. But basically, a big plate is good. And oddly enough, this stuff goes pretty fast. And if it takes me more than 30 seconds to do one, I think it's taken too long. So hold on. What are we at now? 10, 12, 13, 20, 21, 22. All right. Well, anyway, as you can see, it's not that hard. We just did a 4-ounce squash, grated down to its base in less than a minute. And remember what I was saying about having a handle? See that little handle? That's my squash handle. And just in case you didn't believe me, you can do it with a zucchini also. I'll turn it over and we'll do the zucchini. Woo! The squash is flying here today. Now, for some people this is too much work. For me, this is exercise, you know? They say you get out what you put in. If you do your squash burgers like this, they are going to be delicious. All right. Now, how do we turn this into matter that you could use like chopped meat? Let's say. That's what we're trying to mimic. So, we're going to use a little sea salt. All right. The first thing we do is give it a little salt. Just let that sit for a while. And just let that sit. And we're going to take some garlic. We used these fresh garlics before. We're going to use this garlic here again. Okay? Let's do exactly what we were talking about doing, which is use this thing and grate the garlic. I don't know if it's going to grate as easily as that zucchini, but we're going to try. Oh, yeah. Oh, that grated quite well. So now after watching me for like 3 minutes, if you don't think you know how to use a grater, I'll give you a grade. You got a B+. You can use a grater. There you go. I'm going to put that in there, and we're going to add some other spices. You can add some pepper and some salt and some other things. But for right now, let me let this sit aside for a minute. Now I'll be able to show you what I wanted you to see. See down there? See that liquid forming right there at the bottom of the bowl? That's the stuff we got to get rid of. Stir it up a little bit. You know, the reason we put the salt in is because the salt helps to dehydrate the squash. Now I haven't squeezed out anything yet, and if you look, the zucchini is starting to melt out all of the water that's in it. Now we're about to use the food processor on the zucchini. It goes faster, but you know, especially if you're going to make more. This is the blade we're going to use. It's similar to the blade, to the cut on the grater that we use as the hand grater. It will produce a similar size, actually a little bit bigger piece of zucchini, which in a way is better. The only thing you want to do is what we did before, is wash them and trim the tips. Just because the tips are a funny color, I don't know if you'd really notice them. And in this case, we don't need the handles. So off go the handles. Now, some people might actually consider this part of it fun. You can use this second one to push the first one down. Now here's what we've got. This is what we just made. What we're going to do now is we're going to salt this up, stir it up, and we're going to go work on the fire, and we're going to come back. I'm using more salt because I have a lot more zucchini in there. You don't want to use so much salt that you make it taste bad, but enough to help it melt. More. Again, sea salt is my preferred. Make sure if you have people that are sensitive, high blood pressure, whatever, you could put a little of this out on the side in a bowl and not give them the salt if you don't want. But let's get rid of some of this liquid right now because that's what we've been trying to squeeze out of here. You noticed we salted it, squeezed it a little bit and let it sit. Some people would use that for soup. I'm not going to use that for soup right now. But wearing the gloves, this is why we're wearing the gloves, so we can press out all this liquid. I'm taking a big ball, squeezing it out, getting out as much liquid as possible. Zucchini squash in this form can be eaten by someone who wouldn't normally eat a vegetable. because when you grill it, stick it in between a really nice bun, and if you have to put some cheese on it, turn it into the Nouveau cheeseburger. All right. Okay, here we have some basic slaw of squash. All right, all the liquid's pressed out. Let's use 2 eggs. Actually, what I'm going to do is use 1 egg and 1 white. Just in case I make a mistake. You won't see it, but of course I won't. There, the yolk is gone. We had 2 whites, 1 yolk. And we want to break up that 1 yolk, make sure it breaks up, and then we're going to mix everything in here. It's probably a good time to add a little bit more salt, more for flavor than for making the stuff squeeze out. Some other spices, you can put chili in here, you could put chili oil in here, you could put tomato sauce, you could put a lot of things in here with it. Earlier on we grated some Parmesan cheese. We're going to use just about a half a cup, as we said, maybe a little less, just about, maybe 3 ounces. Mix that all in. I think maybe we should put another garlic in. What do you think? Can we do another garlic? Let that squash stuff sit around and just sort of drip down by itself using the big sieve. Then you won't have to do as much work. You could use a strainer and just push it against the sides of the strainer. But I think this garlic will give a nice little extra kick to it. So if you want to make them equal, you can use a spoon. Just spoon them out into patties. Some people like them bigger, some like them smaller. I'm going to take these out to the grill, and we're going to cook them. We're working with the squash burgers now. We prepped them, and we're going to let them get barbecue smell, but not barbecue burn. So they're not going to touch the flame either. They're going to sit on this heavy-duty aluminum foil as opposed to regular aluminum foil. This is the thick stuff that you get when you're doing like Thanksgiving turkeys and whatever. I get it. I like to use it when I'm cooking because it enables me to lift things up and put them down on the foil. These guys, these can cook a little while, so let's turn it up a little bit. If they've cooked for 10 minutes on each side, they're done. Okay, is everybody ready? I wonder what they look like. Ah, look at those beautiful boys and girls. Let's flip these guys over. I'm going to use the fork to kind of hold down the heavy-duty foil. Oops. Oh, all right. If this was regular foil, you might not be able to do this. I tell you what, let's make the 2 of them into cheeseburgers. Right there. This is a combination for those people who want orange cheese and yellow cheese and they can't figure out which one. This is a Jack cheddar combo. So that'll make a nice little cheeseburger. Let that melt for about a minute or 2. Okay, we're ready to check on these. I think they're done. I would say that they are. So here's the cheeseburgers. The beauty of working with foil is when you're finished, the cleanup is real easy. 3. Okay.